Are you looking for spooky books that match the vibes of some of your favourite spooky films? Oh my god, that's so cool, let's hang out. Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Sinead and this is my spooky corner of YouTube, where I talk about the spooky books that I've read, the spooky films that I've watched, and I share some of the spooky shenanigans that I get up to. Spooky, weird, not cozy aesthetic. I tried to do that in a vlog the other day and I threw tea everywhere. Today I'm bringing you book recommendations based on the vibes, the aesthetics, the feel of some of my favourite spooky films. I've got a great big list of films from the creepy to scary to atmospheric to downright weird, and I have scoured my shelves, I have scoured my library, I've scoured other people's libraries, much to their protestations, to try and find books that match the overall aesthetic, the mood, some of the main themes of those films to tantalise you. You may have seen some of these movies and want to recapture that feeling in book form, or you may have read some of the books on this list but not seen these films, so either way your winter's sorted. Fun story, I've already recorded this video once and I realised my microphone wasn't turned on. Yeah, it's fine. First, some quick housekeeping. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear in this video, please do hit subscribe to my channel, like this video, leave a comment, share it with a friend who also needs bookish, filmish suggestions and shenanigans. Next, I'm not covering any classic works of Gothic literature in this list, mainly because I think they need a video all on their own. We're talking your Dracula, your Frankenstein, your Jekyll and Hyde. Those classic works of literature have received multiple adaptations on the big screen, on the small screen, even on the stage, and I think it's worth us exploring some of the best adaptations out there in terms of being faithful to the book, some of the best in terms of the look and the vibe, and oh my god, they channeled something there, and maybe also some of the worst and craziest adaptations. So don't worry, a video of classics brought to screen is coming soon. Classics aside, these also aren't straight book to film adaptations, not one source material and how well it was done. Though of course I'm happy to do a video on my favourite book to screen adaptations in the future. When matching the book to the movie, I'm also going for overall theme, sometimes the overall aesthetic or the major plot points without giving away spoilers. It's not my intention to say, hey, you know the massive twist in this film? Well, read the book because the twist in there is exactly the same. That wouldn't be fun for anyone, I feel, and that's a job for a Reddit subgroup. So nothing I'm saying should or certainly is not intended as a spoiler. The information I'm sharing is available on the blurb of the book or as part of the trailer of the film. If you're someone who doesn't like any kind of even hint of a spoiler of theme or vibe or look or anything, maybe don't watch this video. There can be an ick when books try and have in their marketing, if you like this film, if you like this TV series, then this book definitely is for you. I understand that that drives some people mad. They don't like to see that comparison because realistically, how can you boil down the plot of an entire book, which should be complex, it should be layered, it should be original? How do you boil that down into one sentence and go, well, it's comparable to that movie somehow? In the list that I've put together, I have put some thought into why I think the themes are comparable and why they might work for you if you enjoyed one or the other. But it's up to you, of course. I'm staying mostly within the horror genre. This is a fun list and you may have your own suggestions or thoughts of books that could also match some of the movies I'm suggesting or vice versa. Be mindful of spoilers for other people in the comments section, but I always want more recommendations and welcome that. Not gonna lie to you, the list for this video was very long. I had to whittle it down, so there is definitely room for a part 2, possibly even a part 3. Book and film pairings, favourite thing. Love it. Absolutely love it. I can find you a book that will go beautifully with this film. Or are you enjoying that book? Please, would you like to consider this film here? Little white wine, there we are. Not sure what I'm doing here. Honestly, if I was ever to start a subscription channel based on my book knowledge, it would be that level of detail of just doing a menu of here are the faintest themes in this film and this book that I think would pair beautifully. Like a wine pairing with a 7-course tasting menu. I could do that. But I fear that is a level that is a bit weird. Let's get to it. I am starting off with pure Gothic romance, beauty, darkness, all the things that you want in a movie, and I've got a good book to go with it. That movie is, of course, Crimson Peak by Guillermo del Toro. Released in 2015, when I first watched Crimson Peak, I liked it. I wasn't sure if it was great, but I knew that I enjoyed it. But I swear that I have come back to that film again and again, for it is pure, delicious Gothic indulgence. Crimson Peak has all of the gothic tropes that we know and love in a ghost story. You have a young woman, a smart young woman, she's lost her mother and maybe she's haunted by whispers from the past. Her father is a good man and she wants his approval, but then she meets this dashing, mysterious gentleman who wants to whisk her away, promises her a new life. Oh, she is beguiled. Is he the best match for her? Well, she's swept up in the moment, and he indeed sweeps her away to his beautiful estate, which is, of course, isolated. It's a crumbling, literally crumbling mansion with just the best decor. There's a hole in the roof and there is red stuff bubbling up from the ground, but my god, the gargoyles and the chandeliers and the staircase, I would live there. I would live there. The mansion is isolated, it is decaying, it is a place of rot, it is a place of mystery and secrets and whispers. There is a female figure in this property who is staring with suspicion at the bride, and the bride senses that there are secrets that the husband does not want to reveal. He is keeping himself away from her, and of course secrets start to emerge the more time she spends in this dark, decaying place. Crimson Peak, decent script, it ticks the boxes, good performances, and it looks gorgeous. The costumes and the set design, Guillermo del Toro will not let you down on that front. So if you're looking for that classic gothic vibe with a twist, then my recommendation is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. These two, I think, are the closest match on my list, and saying that, this isn't a spoiler about what's happening in there, but they both know what they're doing in terms of, I want to create a gothic haunted house story. The Hacienda is set in Mexico at the time of the Mexican Civil War. You have a young woman who is married off after experiencing tragedy in her family life. She is sent to this hacienda to be the lady of the manor. So you have this gothic setting in beautiful Mexico. But the manor, it's sort of cool and dark, even in this beautiful sunshine setting. She is left to wander the halls of this place and wonder what happened to the man's first wife. And there are also servants and other female figures there who are hiding in shadows and watching with suspicion. And soon the hauntings begin. But luckily, there's a very hot priest who can do magic. I think the Hacienda is a great companion for Crimson Peak because you get that sense of opulence, indulgence, you really get a sense of the location and how lavish and beautiful and creepy it is, a coldness in the heart of the heat of Mexico. It's also a genuinely scary book. There are moments in there that I did not expect to be as frightened as I was, and it's deeply affecting, and it's got a great bit of romance in there as well. One tiny note, the Hacienda takes half a minute to get into. The first couple of chapters, the backstory, feels a tiny bit slow. I wasn't sure, but once you're over that hurdle, and it's not a big one, you are in. You are in and you are locked in, and all the gothic tropes are there. From the indulgent gothic beauty of Crimson Peak, I'm going to go way in this direction to the dark, twisted, very, very bleak look of The Witch. The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers in 2015. I love Robert Eggers' work. I love his attention to detail and the look of a lot of his films. They are indulgent in a different way. You are fully locking in to something that he is striving for optimum realism in terms of the look and the feel and the aesthetic of it. He is going to go into heavy, heavy detail to make sure that it is of the time, that you really get the sense in The Witch, which is the story of a puritanical family who are sort of ostracized from their community and they're living in this bleak existence. You really get the feeling of how hard it is to live their lives, of how just tough and mundane daily life is, tending the land and sort of surviving in quite a harsh existence. The backdrop of this homestead that this family has created is a huge forest, and a witch is in there. And she's not nice. I personally love it. I think it's a great tale of witchcraft and of devilry and of butter. But The Witch is one film that I see a lot of people asking for book comparisons for. They want a book that has that feel of The Witch. And I think that may be because The Witch is a film that doesn't have pretty witchcraft in it. You know, witchcraft isn't pretty. It is of the land, it is folklore, it is old magic. But often there's a lot of books out at the moment dealing with witches or dealing with witchcraft, and it has a slightly cutesy gloss to it, even when it's dealing with hard subject matter. It is quite attractive and it's quite nice. And really, The Witch, you don't walk away from that film going, oh my god, witchcraft is a good idea. You're going, So for something that channels that darkness, I'm going to recommend The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. Another book that's often recommended in line with The Witch is Sleaford by Brom, which is a story of a woman in the 1600s, puritanical society. She is fighting the patriarchy, and also a Black Philip style creature and other little creatures in the woodland and how the twain shall meet and fighting and everything. Slúfa is a very popular book, beloved by many, and people love the vibes of that book. I like Slúfa. I thought it was a good book. I didn't love it overall. I much prefer the vibes of Year of the Witching, and I think it's a better match, personally, for The Witch. The Year of the Witching is a story of a young woman who is living in a community. It is a rural community. They tend the land. They work very hard. This community is overseen by this religious lord, godlike figure who has to take many, many wives to live in his cathedral-like palace. And he is a tyrant, but no one can talk about it. You have themes of racism in the community. You have whispers of witchcraft. And again, this community is surrounded by a woodland that is cursed by witches, haunted by witches who were cast out before. The reason that I prefer The Year of the Witching as a match for The Witch is because The Year of the Witching really channels a degree of entertainment, because the story is really compelling. It's almost fantastical in its horror and its folk horror. But witchcraft in this story is something very dark. It is dark. It can't be trusted. It can't be harnessed necessarily, even though some people will attempt to do it and find their own version of a power in it. The witchcraft in The Year of the Witching is imbued with rage, and hatred. There's a sense of something much bigger in this story, and I really appreciated that. And I got the same feeling with The Witch, that, you know, this family, the characters in it, the struggles they go through, the decisions they make in there, they are part of a much bigger plan, a much bigger, darker plan. And The Year of the Witching isn't as bleak as The Witch. It is entertaining. It's a journey. The scene setting in it is magnificent. This isn't folk horror with a crown of flowers. This is folk horror where you dig your hands into the dirt and it is soaked in blood. From the darkness of the witches, let's have some fun with some slashers, and let's go to summer camp. Friday the 13th, 1980. Oh, that classic slasher film. One of the greats, taking itself very seriously, but a camp classic now in every sense of the word. So Friday the 13th is, of course, set at a summer camp, and you've got a lot of sexy teens who are all hanging out, and they are going to maybe do some bad things, but then there's someone who's killing them, and could it be the ghost of Jason, the child who was killed there many years ago? You know the plot of Friday the 13th. It's great, and it spawned many a sequel and made Jason the hear me out that he is today. So if you want those campy slasher vibes, but you want it to be a little bit more progressive, a little bit more up to date, then I can highly recommend Heads Will Roll by Josh Winning. I love this book because I love a slasher. I love a slasher that knows to hit the balance between campy fun and some originality and scares at the same time. So Heads Will Roll is set in the modern day, and you have a summer camp, but this summer camp is for grown-ups, and it's Camp Castaway. It's a place where grown-ups can go to escape technology. No phones allowed in there, no social media. You got to switch off while you're there, and a lot of people use it to escape some issues in the outside. Certainly our protagonist Willow does that. Willow is a famous actress, but she has been cancelled. We see text messages at the beginning of the book showing that she's been cancelled, so she must whisk away to this camp to switch off until all these problems blow over. She arrives, she meets her fellow campers who are interesting and beguiling and a bit weird in equal measure, but the camp, you see, has a legend attached to it. It is haunted by a witch, the ghost of Knock Knock Nancy. Knock Knock Nancy, who definitely wants your head. Heads Will Roll is genuinely thrilling. It's got a great plot. It's got great plot twists. It shifts perspective in the right places. It gives you that tension between, is this a thriller and a serial killer, or is there something supernatural going on? Who do we trust? Who do we think is responsible of all the characters? It shifts and plays with you just enough to make sure that it stays fun, but it stays creepy and thrilling. It's also got great queer representation through it and some really gory deaths. I love a book slasher, and that one is one of my favourites. If we're talking slashers in general, if you were a fan of the likes of Friday the 13th, but also Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, then you might want to check out the Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This is a book about final girls from film series we may recognise. They're not directly referenced in there, but we know what's going on. And they have started their support group because they have to deal with what the hell happened to them in all of these scenarios that we know pretty well. The central story of it is good. It's a decent thriller. It's not world-beating, but it's entertaining. The thing that I like most about it, though, it is interspersed with bits of mixed media referring to each of the final girls and making references to the films that they're linked to. You've got interviews, you've got newspaper articles, and as a horror film fan, it was like finding a bunch of Easter eggs. It was really good fun to pour through and enjoy, and those bits gave me such happiness and recalled all of those films. It was worth it for those bits alone. Definitely a book to check out. I like Grady Hendrix's work. The story, as I said, the middle of it's absolutely fine, but those little Easter eggs to hunt for, good for any film fan. This is your friendly reminder to please like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so I can keep bringing you book and film recommendations. If you've stayed this long and you don't like this video, thank you. Let's jump over to vampires now, and a recent film, one of my favourite films of 2025, Sinners. The story of two brothers in the 1930s who returned to their hometown in Mississippi. They have been in Chicago for a few years doing some stuff with people who may be associated with Chicago, some shady dealings. But they are going to open a juke joint in their hometown. They're reconnecting with people, they're reconnecting with old friends, and they're putting to rest old grievances and old pains. Yeah, they've also got to deal with some of the white people around who have got opinions about black people running their own business. But you also have this backdrop of these figures, these creatures who, well, they're vampires. I won't say much more on the plot of Sinners if you haven't seen it. Just go and watch it. I adored it, suffice it to say. I loved the use of music all the way through it. I thought it was inventive. I thought it was a nice mix of slow burn, considered drama, and also really, really crazy, inventive horror the further you went into it. There was a moment in the cinema where I had to be held back in my seat from getting up to Irish Dance when Remick starts singing Rocky Road to Dublin. Now, finding a book that channels all the vibes in Sinners is a bit of a challenge, but I have a couple of recs. A book that I think closely matches the energy of Sinners in terms of its horror and also its thrilling elements. A book that acknowledges the importance of the past and of your folklore. It is Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. Ring Shout is set in Georgia in the 1920s, but it's an alternate history because it poses the idea that the clan of the time were actually eldritch monsters. They had been summoned by a witch, and these are horrifying monsters, creatures that are wreaking havoc across the country, across the globe. You have the backdrop of Birth of a Nation, a real film by D.W. Griffiths. That film was imbued with dark magic, and it is recruiting people to join the clan's cause. But who are going to fight these monsters? Three badass women. Our three female protagonists in there. They fight dirty, they fight hard, they are powerful, they are smart, they are wisecracking. These women have to fight them, but it's also about digging into your roots, digging into your power, digging into the power of their people, and finding a cause that fights this sort of level of horror. The horror of these creatures and the horror of racism. Ring Shout is an incredibly entertaining, incredibly powerful book. And yes, it has that same energy that Sinners has in its most high octane moment. You also have the likes of The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve Dew. Very tense, very sad, very beautiful book about a boys' reformatory school in Jim Crow era Florida, where you have a young boy who is sent there for something he didn't do, and he is battling with haints, with ghosts, and this is folklore that also comes into Sinners. The Ballad of Black Tom, another novella by Victor Lavelle, is a retelling of H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Horror at Red Hook, but this one is told from the perspective of a young black hustler who is also a musician, who carries his guitar around, and he witnesses certain horrors and he becomes involved in a very dramatic retelling of that original Lovecraft story. It again has similar themes to Sinners, but is a story of its own. I have not read this one, but apparently Coffin Moon by Keith Rosen is a new vampire book that a lot of people are saying, oh yes, similar vibes to Sinners, but I haven't read it, so I can't tell you for sure, but it is a book that is getting a lot of praise and a lot of good publicity and awards. Sticking on the themes of vampires, and it is a bit of a curveball, but I think quite a few of you guys will know the film The Hunger, 1983. Erotic vampire film. This is a goth classic. It looks superb, still looking back now. The story is a bit dated. It is a complex, twisted and turning female vampire who is siring her lovers, her companions. Now, if you remember The Hunger, then I think you will get a lot out of reading a recent read from me, but a very good one, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This was released this year, 2025, and this is a story of three females in different time periods and how they cope with vampirism, but also how they cope with relationships, how they use their vampirism, but how they cope with loneliness, of the need for companionship, with love, with intimacy. And it's about toxic relationships, this book. But it is so well done. It is a great piece of historical fiction. It's a great twist on vampire lore. And yeah, you do have toxic lesbian vampires in it. And the toxicity rings so true in this book. It is not a light touch. It is not cliched in the way that I think some vampire books can be, where they're just fixated on, how vampires work. This is much more about the relationships and much more about, are monsters born or are they made? As a vampire, all the decisions you make can have an impact on those living around you. And what is the cost of your eternal life and your loneliness or your need for companionship? I'll also recommend another book by Alexis Henderson, House of Hunger. This is the story of a steampunk kind of world where we've got this big sort of industrial city and this young woman who is living at home in these horrible conditions. She's so poor. She doesn't have a way out of this miserable life she has. The only option she has is to become a blood maid. They have houses in the north of this country where you have lords and ladies who rule these estates and have a great deal of power. But they are a twist on a vampire. It's never explicitly said that they're a vampire, but they drink the blood of their blood maids, their servants, who are very well treated and revered, but they are still slaves. But to become a blood maid is a great prestigious position. And this becomes a tale of, again, toxic lesbian vampires. And that twist on vampire lore I really, really enjoyed in House of Hunger. So well worth looking into if you're a fan of the original film, The Hunger. I'm aware Hunger was a book originally, 1981. I have not read that book. I think it's the only film on this list that actually was adapted. So it's a little bit of a cheat, but my recommendations stand. Fun films and fun books to go with them that are still pretty bloody. One of my favourite comfort comedy horror watches is Ready or Not. Ready or Not, starring Samara Weaving, released in 2019. I love this film with a passion. I could watch it over and over again. It's a story of a young woman who is marrying at the start of the film. Her boyfriend, now husband, they are at his family's estate. He has been estranged from them for a while, but they have repaired bonds at his bride's sort of insistence. They have all been invited to this house. They've had the wedding, and on the wedding night, the family want to welcome the bride in, and they have a tradition where they all have to play a game, like a kid's game, and she has to choose the game at random, and it's a game of hide and seek. So she toddles off to play hide and seek, but it soon becomes apparent that this game of hide and seek won't be friendly. If you've not seen it yet, there is a huge amount to enjoy in Ready or Not. It is the right mix of campy comedy and creative, inventive horror and very good performances all the way through. If you want to channel those vibes, I highly recommend Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson. Delilah S. Dawson is an author who writes really creative, again, slightly indulgent, punky, campy horror, but with a nice dark twist to it. In Guillotine, our female protagonist is a struggling fashion designer who is desperate to come up in the world, to have her work noticed. She ends up going on a date with this guy who she's not particularly enamored with. She doesn't really want to continue the relationship. He's part of the 1% though, and she realizes that his mother is really high up in the fashion industry, and if she can just get to meet the mother, she might get a leg up for her career. She's willing to suffer out hanging out with this guy to get an audience with his mum. He's delighted, thinking he's the shit, and he invites her to a family get-together on their big private island, and they arrive and she goes, whoa, this is how the 1% live. This is insane. This is opulent. Oh, we all have to sign NDAs before we meet each other. Okay, well, at least the staff are really loyal and really attentive. The staff, though, aren't happy. Guillotine is an absolutely wild ride. It has that same energy of Ready or Not, but it's inventive. It's an entirely own story. It's got trigger warnings at the start of the book, so do take a look at those if you're someone who needs to check trigger warnings. I had such fun with that book. I think it is such a crazy, campy, gory story. It gives you everything you're wanting in that kind of slasher, but eat the rich vibe. My next recommendation was based on the book first. I so enjoyed this book when I read it over the summer, and I realised it was comparable to a couple of films. So rather than me starting with, oh, what's a book that will match that vibe in the film, I've sort of reversed it here. Imagine these two films spliced together. Knives Out and The House on Haunted Hill. The House on Haunted Hill, the Vincent Price film that was later remade with Jeffrey Price and Famke Janssen, and it was terrible. But it's The House on Haunted Hill. It's not The Haunting of Hill House. It's not The Haunting. It's not The Haunting on the Hill, which was another... It's The House on Haunted Hill. That story involves a haunted house where Vincent Price invites people along and says, you will win $1 million if you can survive the night in this haunted house. Sign me up. So the vibes of that film, mixed with all the quirky characters and thrilling elements of Knives Out with a bit of the comedy in there too, then you get How to Survive a Horror Story by Mallory Arnold. I read an advanced copy of this book over the summer, and I did not expect to love it as much as I did. I'd heard good things about it. The premise is that a collection of horror writers, they all write in the horror sphere, but they've all got different sort of genres, subgenres that they write in. So you've got, slasher, you've got erotic horror, you've got literary horror, you've got people who are struggling to come up in the world. They're all invited to the will reading of this one horror writer who is the master of his field, is so big, is so huge, he has an empire. They are invited to his house for the will reading. But when they arrive, it transpires that there's not going to be a will reading. They have to survive the night in his house, because his house really is haunted, and it is not a nice house at all. What makes this book so enjoyable is you do get different perspectives of the different people who are in the house. They all have their different quirks. They're all flawed. They've all got something to hide. And they've all got backstories that are revealed slightly in between chapters as you go through. And then you've also got them trying to survive in this house of horrors. There are challenges, there are puzzles that they've got to solve that relate to each of them. And they've got to work it out in this race against time to try and get out before the night is over. It's that kind of level of enjoyment and backstory and silliness, but still very scary at parts. And I so enjoyed it. And yeah, it was those two films that it reminded me of. I was like, it's got that Knives Out energy of slightly campy fun, but a good mystery at its heart. And The House on Haunted Hill, just for that scare factor, for that sort of premise. There are so many books at the moment that are like, how to survive this, how to survive this, how to be in a horror story, how to do that, how to survive a horror story. Mallory Arnold, really good book. Now, my final recommendation is a psychological horror. It's a bit of a niche, but if you loved this film, I've got a great book that matches it. If you loved Black Swan, then definitely check out Watch Her Fall by Erin Kelly. Black Swan, wonderful story of a ballerina who was working so hard in her company to be noticed, to be number one, to be cast as Odette and Odile in the upcoming production of Swan Lake, while she is battling with internal problems, her psychological problems, problems at home. Is she going crazy to get this role of a lifetime? I really enjoyed Black Swan because I seem to really love any kind of film or book that has a ballet school setting, but I also particularly like anything that is a behind the scenes look at theatre, opera, ballet, anything like that, where you see behind the scenes and see all the drama of actors or performers, what they have to deal with before they go on stage. Love that as a genre. Watch Her Fall is a psychological thriller, and similarly, it is about a ballet company. You have different perspectives through it. You have your prima ballerina, who is the daughter of the company's owner, and she is under such harsh treatment from her father, not favorited at all, even though she works so hard and is desperate for approval and for her starring role. You have another dancer in the company who is so sure of herself and determined to be noticed and wants to be friends and wants to be liked and wants to be accepted. What lengths will she go to be noticed? What lengths will the other dancer go to get her role? Who is working against them? Who is working for them? Are they working together? Are they working on opposite sides? What other factors are going to come into play? It is a very good psychological thriller with very good twists in it. It is very reminiscent of Black Swan, even though it's got entirely its own story, but there are similar themes in there, but there's no spoilers in terms of, you know that there's going to be rivalry between ballerinas, but Watch Her Fall is very inventive and goes to places. It's about 400 pages. There were tiny bits of that book that dragged a little, but overall, really compelling story. I'm also listening to I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me, which is another thriller, horror, more heavy, as I understand it, book that is set in a ballet school involving ballerinas, a black ballerina who is facing prejudice, who is fighting to be noticed. There will be a horror element to this story. I haven't gotten to it yet, but so far, really enjoying it. There you go, a collection of films and books to match, or books and films to match. Whichever way you want to do it, those are the pairings that I'm giving you this time around. As I said, I have a great big long list of films and books that I think work well together, so I'm very happy to do a part 2. In the future, there will be a video where I look at the classic, predominantly gothic horror novels and their adaptations. Big screen, small screen, stage, the best and the worst of them. We can have a lot of fun with that. So do leave in the comments suggestions of adaptations that you have really enjoyed, of books, of horror books in particular, and also some terrible ones that you just want to throw in there because they're wild. If you also have suggestions of more books that match some of the films that I've mentioned, or more films that match some of the books I've mentioned, do leave them in the comments. I'm always happy to have more recommendations. Be mindful of spoilers for anyone who is scrolling through and looking for those recommendations as well. And please like this video, subscribe to my channel so I can keep bringing you more booky, filmy goodness. Stay spooky, bye-bye.